Hey, this is Josh Barnes with Point of View, where we discuss the crucial questions that you have about the critical issues of our day from a biblical worldview. We believe that to be right about issues, you're going to have to be biblical about issues. Check out Point of View every Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. and every Tuesday night from 8 to 8:30 right here on Right America Media Network at ramtv.live. Join us for the next episode of Point of View and let the Bible change your perspective.
Hi, America. My name is Savannah Lynn, and I'm the host of a political commentary podcast called The Savvy Truth. If you love God, love your family, and you love this country, you can tune in at Right America Media on Facebook or at ramtv.live. This podcast airs 7 Eastern and 6 Central.
I am a raging patriot. Hey, welcome to KSok Uncensored. Today's segment is about Washington State. Now, Washington State is very diverse in landscape and political opinion. So today is going to be Southwest Washington. Actually, that's why I'm wearing my native Washingtonian t-shirt. I grew up in Southwest Washington, and though I've been an Oregonian for the past 12 years, my heart is in Southwest Washington. So we will have a segment on the Seattle area on the 29th of April. But today I have two amazing patriots from Southwest Washington, and we are going to have an hour-long show today because we have just too much to cover in a short 30-minute period of time. Something that is on my mind is the fact that in California, they are proposing a bill. Let me tell you the actual name of the bill: the new California Law Enforcement Accountability Reform Act. This is going to be voted on April 6th. And basically, they are regulating their officers, their existing officers. They are searching through their social media websites, etc., for hate speech. And it's also for any new or any applicants that want to be law enforcement officers. They are looking at their social media for hate speech. That sounds normal, right? You don't want a police officer with hate speech, but their definition of hate speech is what's concerning. And actually, industry experts are very concerned that what this bill will do is weed out Christians, pro-lifers, and conservatives altogether, as they can tag any of our conservative views to hate speech for the opponent. Very concerning. let's hope that some sanity is left in the state of California and that does not pass. Again, that is April 6th. That is going to be voted for by the California Assembly Public Safety Committee. So look out for that. That's just the start. That's just the start, folks. Something else, top of mind, definitely. Very, very emotional week. We watched Colorado, Boulder, Colorado. Another shooting took place, another senseless mass shooting. You know why it's not all over the news? It's because all 10 victims are white. And that's the sad truth of it. There was a police department in the Northwest, I'm not going to be specific, and following the Atlanta shooting, there was the Stop Asian Hate campaign that went out. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is that the Atlanta shootings had nothing to do with targeting Asians. It had everything to do with the fact that the individual, the shooter, he was a sex addicted psychopath and he was targeting sex shops. So the three parlors, massage parlors, were 24-hour massage parlors. They were on the web and known places where you can go and pay for sexual acts. That is why he targeted them. It had nothing to do with their race. But it was the perfect opportunity for the left to say, we're going to have another anti-white campaign, basically. But nothing about the Colorado shooter. Nothing there. And again, unfortunately, in this day and age, it's not surprising. And actually, the father of the law enforcement officer who was murdered in Boulder, he spoke out and said that his son would be horrified if he knew that his death was being used for gun grabbing. That just, that is all too relevant right now. And as we know, historically, the left, anytime there has been a mass shooting, they're going to go for the guns. They're going for violating our Second Amendment. And that's something that's been happening for decades, but with a heavy emphasis recently because of who's in charge right now. I'm sure you guys saw Uncle Joe's speech today. One, I refuse. I don't care who tells me that he won the presidency legitimately. I will never believe that. Just look at him. That man, you know with those saliva sticks for the people that just can't stop drooling, he's using those in his off time. He is completely unsuited to be a leader, let alone the president of the United States. He could hardly put two words together today. But the ones he was able to put together, it's because he knew ahead of time who was going to be asking him the questions, what news outlet they were from, and the subject. Now, a few of them I could tell they did go a little off topic because he was caught off guard quite a few times. Or that could just be him because he's incompetent and isn't able to answer anything that's thrown his way. He likes to use his condescending laugh and smirk, and he even asked a few of the people asking the questions if they were serious. I don't know if I heard a "come on, man," but he got close with one woman. He asked her if her question was serious. What he spoke about, he started out talking about vaccines, and then he goes into his objective to have schools reopened. He talks about the American Rescue Plan. Where he really got pinned was when he was talking about the border crisis. And basically, he had a few people, and you could tell they were from opposite ends of the spectrum, asking him. One was saying, "You're supposed to be this nice, welcoming leader. That's why all these people came here. They came here for you because you're so nice." And she was serious. And then he had someone else on the other end that basically said, "What are you doing? The capacity, it is literally at 1,556% capacity where these minors are being housed." I mean, just think about that. They are packed in like sardines. Lots of them haven't even had fresh air or seen the sunshine in days on end. And he's not willing to consider it an emergency or a crisis. They'll say it's a complicated circumstance, but they're not going there. They're not allowing to just call a spade a spade. And the whole thing is, he told them to come. He told them to come, and now he's telling them to go home. And so he's being called on the carpet for that. People brought up voter reform, and he said it's anti-American, that requiring people to show ID to vote, it's anti-American. Uh, what is it then? I mean, to me, it's common sense. But that's why the Democrats, that's why they wanted this mass influx coming from other countries. It's because they want those votes. So, it was just a huge disappointment, but I have zero expectations for him. And really, I watched it for entertainment. I took notes, and nothing there said leadership, nothing at all. And you guys, he can hardly walk. So as you saw, he fell up the stairs. How do you fall up the stairs? I mean, he literally fell 3 times up the stairs. Now, I'm sure you guys have all seen 100,000 memes, but that's a difficult one. Anyways, I mean, thankfully it wasn't down the stairs. We know that wouldn't have ended well. But anyways, what I want to do here is I have an amazing patriot, Justine, and she's actually from the town I grew up in. And I would like to bring Justine on so we can dive into all things Southwest Washington. Hey, how's it going?
Hey, Kristen, how are you? I appreciate
Doing well.
being here with you today.
I'm excited to have you on. It's funny, we were trying to figure out how we even know each other. And we're like, yeah, I think we went to high school together. Nope, not it. Just
Ton of
one
mutual
those things.
friends.
That's what it is. Yeah, exactly. Well, I was impressed with you early on in June when all the rioting and protesting started, and I was feeling very alone. And then the mask mandates, I was just so angry and I felt so alone. And when I would go on Facebook and see your posts, I felt, oh my gosh, there's somebody else who gets it. And it was just so refreshing. And that is an understatement. I mean, I appreciate you more than you know, because those were very difficult times for me. And it was before I even started my social media platform. And so I didn't have that outlet of like-minded people. And so you were really one of the first people who reassured me that now I'm not saying things are going to be okay, but at least we have people willing to fight as the ship goes down. I hate to say that, but yeah, that's where we're at. So talk to me. What ignited this raging patriot inside of you?
It's just I had enough, like you said, raging patriot. That is a really good way to describe it. When you recognize a lie, you have to confront it with the truth. And I totally believe that. So it takes courage, right? This year alone, this whole past year and everything from the beginning of the pandemic and the rioting and the
Little technical issue, just in case I'm not responding on time. Uh-oh. All right. Well, while Justine comes back, I know that some of the topics that are near and dear to her heart are faith, for sure. She has attended so many freedom rallies in the Southwest Washington area. She has attended maskless shopping events that have been organized. She personally is bold enough not to wear a mask when she goes shopping. And that's difficult to do. And I personally did that for a while. And when I got screamed at when I was in a Target in front of my 10-year-old daughter, I'll be honest, it wore me down a little bit. And so when I am with my kids, I do wear a mask because I just don't want my daughter having to witness that, or my son having to witness that again. So the fact that Justine is brave enough to take that on every single day really speaks to her character, and it's very impressive. I know that that Justine also has been very vocal on social media, and that's difficult because she does have a large social media presence, and a lot of the people on her social media are friends and family and people that she does business with. And so for her to be able to take a stance and stick with it despite the outcome, that is such bravery, and not enough conservatives are willing to do that. I do feel that now is the time, and that we are seeing more and more, especially a lot more women getting involved in politics. And something that I really feel is driving that is the fact that our children have been so negatively impacted by the shutdown of the schools. A lot of women are realizing not only how negative that has been for their children, but for themselves and their family life. And that has been something that has ignited a lot of frustration and involvement in women all across the country, but heavily in liberal areas. Do we have you back? All right, we have Justine back. We're going to bring her back on here. I hope I did her justice here. Hey,
I don't know what happened.
Hey, you know what? Luckily, I just bragged about you for the last couple minutes. So,
Oh, I appreciate that. We're in a battle, right? And there we go. So we have to get in the battle, right? So like to be strong and courageous has been my word for this year. And it just has encompassed a whole bunch of things with the mask and the school closures. And
right.
Most importantly, the fire that's been under President Trump and the Patriots.
Right. Absolutely. Would you say while you were off, I was just saying that I feel like a lot more women are getting involved a lot more conservative women are getting involved in politics. And I feel like one of the drivers is the fact that our children have been out of school for a year, at least here in our neck of the woods. And it's driving us to really realize the hypocrisies happening all around us, and how wrong a lot of these movements have been, like the mask mandates, the school closures, the COVID restrictions. So I'm just curious, has your children being so negatively impacted by everything driven you, or has that been part of why you're doing what you're doing?
That's a great question. It really has made me so angry in such a way, right? So we got to stop complaining and sitting and watching TV, and we have to get involved. And so that's what I was doing. I was going to rallies, and it was positive and it was fun. And so many people in the summer were like, they really wanted community, you know what I mean? And unity together and be on this fight for what's right, because we recognize the lies in culture, the lies in politics, and what's at stake. Our freedoms are at stake, they're after our children, right? And so we have to be a voice in the darkness. And in order to do that, we have to discern the truth, right? And it comes from our God-given rights that are not given to us by the government. So,
yeah, no, you're spot on. I'd like to hear a little bit more about the freedom rallies that were put on, and really what went into planning them, and then really the overall vibe when you were attending them.
I would have to say it started with the COLP rallies and just getting involved, because we have a dictator in office here in Washington State, and Inslee has not been consistent, and he is destroying our state. And so I was like, we got to get involved. We got to get the word out. We got to blast it, right? We have to not be afraid to put the truth out there. Like, this is what's going on. This is affecting our state. This is affecting our schools and our future. And lockdowns, the mask mandate. So I went to a couple of rallies with Patriot Prayer, Joey Gibson, and a lot of.
Seems like we have another technical issue here, but just to be able to tell you guys who COLP is. So Jay Inslee is the governor over Washington State. Now, Washington State is part of the West Coast Pact, and Washington State has had some of the strictest lockdowns, just like Oregon, just like California. So COLP was running against Inslee, and actually, the last I looked, COLP came in with 45% of the vote. So it was a very close race. And actually, let's not forget that all of the states that have historically utilized mail-in voting, I highly suspect that there has been voter fraud taking place for decades. I mean, you think about just here in Oregon, we were the very first state to have mandated mail-in voting, and we haven't been read since. Justine is back. Let's bring her back in. This happens. It happens. It's the nature of the beast. Hey,
I appreciate you guys. Thank you.
It happens.
So you're
To say it. I can fill in the
like I
blanks.
said, we're in
But
a
so,
battle, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
yeah,
No, so I was explaining who Culp is because Culp came in with 45% of the
yes,
vote against Inslee, so close. And then I was talking about how I feel that there has definitely been some historic voter fraud happening in Washington, Oregon, because of the mail-in voting that we've been having.
yes,
So who knows? Culp could have won, just like what happened with our
yeah.
presidency.
Well, there's still an
Yeah,
investigation going on, and we have to just not let our state go to ruin, right? It causes you to get involved. And I totally believe that greater is he who is in you than he who is in the world. And we're in a battle that is a light and darkness, okay? Good versus evil. And we have to remember that there are agendas, and there's a lot of really, really disgusting, evil agendas on the Democrat and liberal left side of things. And so there's so many people that don't get involved, right?
right.
So we have to get involved because the future of our nation and the future of our children, right? Their future is under fire right now. Okay, and faith, family, and freedom.
Right.
So, I mean, we have to really get involved, and there's so many weak conservatives. I can't say that enough. We have to stop being afraid. Like we have to recognize the truth, confront the lie, bring out the truth, and we have to discern that, right? And it takes, being strong and courageous. It takes wisdom. We have to know right from wrong. And unless we get off of this roller coaster rant of life right now, we're not going to be able to make progress. They're just going to take over, and it's going to be ugly. And so we have to get off the bench and onto the battlefield. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. I completely agree. I'm curious, in your personal life, since you've so strongly taken a stance, have you lost friends? Have you had family members that don't want to interact with you right now? Have you had any negative experiences like that?
I appreciate you asking that question, and that's a hard thing to go through. There has been rejection, but when you stand up for the truth and what's right, it's going to cost you something. So when I started really supporting President Trump and getting in the battlefield and making an impact, it got people upset. They're like, well, what are you doing? I'm like, I don't like what's going on. I see what's going on. I see that the church is under attack. There's a sifting in the church right now. And we need to support the good policies. We need to stand up for what's right and not be afraid. And so, yeah, it's caused me to get out there, against the mask. You know what I mean? We have to, they don't work. And they're so flip-flop. We can't trust the CDC. They have so many lies. They're inconsistent. And then you look at, the WHO and Fauci, and it's a giant, you have to pray for them, and then you get wisdom. And that's what I did. I prayed for wisdom, and the Lord gave me wisdom so I could see the truth. I could see what's really happening,
That's amazing.
So yeah, I just wanted to add that in there.
Is that the hat you sport at Costco?
I've worn lots of different hats. I've gone into Costco with my American flag even, and I try really hard to not get into conflicts with people, but I go in there and I just say, I don't need that. I'm not afraid of this thing in the air. Masks don't work. We need to, in fact, they're actually demonic if we want to get right down to it, because it's a tool, manipulation tool to get us to stop breathing and smiling, because the devil would like nothing more than to keep us shut up, living in fear, and not making an impact. Okay, because we're walking around like little scaredy cats. And no, we wash our hands. I mean, there's been lots of viruses.
Right. That really speaks to me because I have a 10-year-old daughter, and when she wears a mask, it just bothers me so much. When she wears a mask, it's like her personality gets sucked, and it's really strange. It's so sad to see. And so yesterday at Fred Meyer, for those of you who don't know, Fred Meyer is an amazing grocery store here. But I ripped it off her face because I saw my little girl she just seems so meek and weak. And I was like, nope. And so then it was like her personality came back. So you're absolutely spot on. I've witnessed that firsthand with my baby, and it makes me sick. And Yeah, no, I completely agree with
I'm
you
right
on
there
that.
with you. I'm right there with you. And we have been an unmasked family, and we don't push it all over the place, at all. But if somebody wants to wear one, that's fine. But please don't make it like a mandate rule and have us get involved. Have it become this thing where this is part of our life now, like we put on shoes.
Right.
No, that
Yeah.
doesn't work.
Right. Exactly.
And so we have to confront it. Enough is enough. We're going on 13 months of this garbage, right? And like I said, we have to be a voice in the darkness, and so it
Right.
causes people to run off, and it's sad, but it's the ultimate truth. And there's more at stake, and that means more. And you know what? I gained a whole bunch more friends, and it's been great. I've had lots of great conversations. There's been conversations that haven't gone so well, and we have to remember how we respond on social media, because it can get really ugly sometimes. So just sometimes not responding or thinking about it is probably the best way, especially when they come off attacking you,
Right.
kind of like what the media's been doing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So we
One
have
of
to be
my
a
go-
beacon in the beacon
Oh,
of
no, go
light
for it.
too to people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're so right. One of my go-tos for insult is I'll be like, "You're clever," just like a little, and then yeah, it shuts them up because they realize I'm just being sarcastic. But yeah, people can be nasty. So yeah, and you have to be
Well,
bold.
and
They want to be quiet.
I love what you
Go
just
ahead.
said, that we have to be bold. We have to be bold.
Right.
And so it scares people, right? Because it makes them think, like they think, well, that doesn't make sense, or I don't get into politics. No. I said, no, Jesus has been very political. He got involved. He stood up for what was right, what was wrong. And we need to do
Right.
that. And there's so much at stake, and we have to know what the Constitution says. We have
Right.
to know that God has given us, freedom. And it comes from him first. And
Right.
we're in a nation that
Looks like we have another little blip, but we are coming right up to the end. Oh, all right. Well, you're back right in time. What I'd like to do, we are right up on the end of your segment, and we're going to bring Wadi in. And I just appreciate you being on here so much. It means a lot to me. And like I said, going way back to June, might even have been end of May, you really were that beacon of light for me. So that means a lot.
I
And
appreciate that.
I'm proud of you.
Kristen, can I mention one more thing, just real quick?
Yes.
So, getting involved also is about being like a part of, your city councils, your
That's too bad. It must be, she lives out in the country, so it must be that internet out there. Oh, you're back. Let's try it one more time, Justine. Let's bring you back in, see if we can get your.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I do. I live out in the country, and I love it. That was the best part about 2020, was getting a few acres. But real quick, I got, I'm involved with the Clark County Republican Party, the Women's Group 1, and my friend Heidi St. John is running for Congress, and so I decided to join her campaign team to help her out and blast the word. And I know there's so many other great candidates running as well, and I think that's so amazing. It's caused so many people to get involved, because we're tired of rhino traitors that don't do the job of the people. We the people. And to work for us, and that you're not working for other evil agendas, So I'm excited about that, because like I said, we have to get off the bench and onto the battlefield. And if we don't, then there's going to be more decay happening. And so, so I appreciate you having me on today, Kristen, and thank you for
my pleasure.
the issues of the internet here, but
we were battling that internet connection, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm speaking the truth. I want people to know that, greater is he who's in you than he who's in the world. And it really is a battle. And we have to be on our knees. We have to be praying for our leaders and our politicians.
Right.
And we have to just get involved and not sit around. You know what I mean? Like, because it affects everybody. Politics affects everybody, no matter what. And so I can't say that enough. And I want to leave people with just these two words that's been mine. That my word this year is strong and courageous. You can be strong and courageous. You can get off the bench and onto the battlefield and be afraid, because in the Bible it says, do not fear 365 times. It talks about not being afraid. And that's one for every single day. And so we don't have to be afraid, and we have to take a stand. And so I appreciate you having me on today.
I love that. Oh, absolutely. I think that speaks to all of us, really. That's wonderful. I appreciate that. Well, Justine, we'll do this again. I appreciate you so much, and thank you for being so involved in your community, which I call home. So I appreciate you. And with that, we're going to bring in our next guest. We have Wadi here. And speaking of friendly competition, Wadi is actually running for the same spot in Congress that Justine's friend is running for. And so, it is, and I had no idea when I had put the guest list together for today. I had no idea that both parties happened to be affiliated with or running for the same. But it keeps it interesting. And I think the point is that we are working to get the incumbent out, so we can get somebody worthwhile in. With that, Wadi, do we have you live here? We're having some more internet connection issues. I can see you staring at me, but it appears you're frozen. Well, I can talk meanwhile. I mean, I've been doing it. So Wadi, and I'm going to give him an introduction, and then once he's back in, he can speak to his background. But he actually is a family friend. So he's known my sister a long time and grew up in the town I grew up in. And so he actually served in the U.S. military. I wrote down his title here because I didn't have it memorized. But he served in the U.S. Navy as an air crewman, chief of staff, as an air crewman. And then he went from the military. He actually worked for the Trump administration as the chief of staff of selective service. Oh, we have you. Yay. We're going to bring him in now. Man,
something's wrong with the internet today. I'm telling you.
Good Lord. You guys out in the country in Southwest Washington giving me heart palpitations. No, I'm just
I had a couple just now, so I'm glad we're back.
I'm sure. Well, I didn't get very far, so that worked out well. You're going to do a much better introduction of yourself than I just did, because I blended your two titles together. So I just did say, though, family friend. I had never met you, still never met you in person, but found out you've been friends with my sister forever. And would you agree? So I just booked my sister for April 6th. So she's going to do a segment on addiction. And would you agree that she's more savage than I am, just based on what you know? Because people don't believe me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think she's going to do a really good job.
Oh, she'll be killer.
You better be careful.
For sure.
She might end up your co-host if you're not careful.
She might. I know. Well, Juan has to have. What do you think? I think Juan's going to have the beeper on just in case some curse words go flying. We'll see. She'll keep him busy. But no, I'm excited to have her on. I had put something on my Instagram stories and I said, the original savage. And people were like, she's not more savage than you. I'm like, yeah, she is, like times 20. So anyways, it'll be entertaining for sure. But let's talk about you. You have so much going on. You're super interesting. Grew up in Southwest Washington, went to serve in the military. Can you talk to us about that?
Oh, yeah. So if there's anything, to introduce myself just to the audience, if there's anything to know about me, there's three things. I'm a Navy veteran. I'm a former appointee in the Trump administration, and I'm a candidate for Congress in Southwest Washington. And I was born and raised here. You know, I went to Prairie High School, graduated in 2004. The first job I ever had, I don't know if your listeners would know this, but the first job I ever had was working the cash register at Burgerville. In Old Salmon Creek.
Burgerville's the best. Oh my gosh. I am so lucky I don't have one by me, because I would be ballooning up pretty quick here. Good
Yeah,
choice.
it's now that I'm back home, I've been going there a little too frequently, but but yeah, and then I joined the Navy in 2008. I wanted to do something kind of cool, so I became a naval air crewman as an aviation warfare systems operator. So if there's any AWs right now who are listening to this, please go to wadiforcongress.com and throw your brother $20, please.
I like it. Hey, a shameless ask. You have to do it.
Yeah. And so I did that for about 6 years, and it was really exciting. Aviation warfare is mainly, submarine tracking and hunting. So a lot of Russian submarines, Chinese, North Korea, even surveillance on, some countries that we may not be at war with yet. And I had a great deployment where I spent in Central America, where we went out there to the Pacific, and we'd fly around and look for the drug smugglers puttering around in the middle of the Pacific. And that was probably my most memorable deployment because there was just so much going on. And I learned a lot out there just about, the war on drugs and how frequently these people are pouring into our country with millions and millions of dollars of narcotics. And now hearing that Washington State has introduced a bill, I think 1 or 2 days ago, to emulate what Portland's doing and legalize all hard drugs. I don't know what's going on there, but we'll see if it passes. Oh, I can't hear you. I think you're muted, Kristen.
Yeah, I think. All right, we're in. You know what? Today is just the survival. That'll be the survival of the fittest. That'll be the title of the show. Technology can be a beast. It sure can. But no, so I know it's crazy. So basically they are in Portland. They've made it to where these they don't like to say they've legalized these hard drugs. They've decriminalized. But come on. I mean, it's like it's ridiculous. And I have no doubt that it's going to pass in Washington State. Washington, Oregon, and California, they're part of this, that West Coast Pact. And yeah, it was supposed to be specific to COVID, but they seem to just follow suit. So I think it's probably coming your way, unfortunately.
And it hurts our law enforcement. What are they supposed to do? No police officer wants to become a glorified speed ticket writer. They want to actually get in and help the community take out a lot of these bad things that are happening, and they're not allowed to do that.
Right. Yep. No, their hands are tied for sure. It's been really pitiful to watch.
My mom was a cop, not a cop. My mom was a police officer for 20 years in Clark County.
Really?
And it was rough because, I kind of lived through her from the sidelines on some of the things she dealt with. And I'm glad she retired before all this defund the police stuff started happening, because I don't want my mom to have to deal with that.
That's
you pull people over, and now police officers, it's justified to abuse them, based on what the media says and what society says, and that's horrible. That's my mom.
Right. Oh yeah, no, that's where I had no idea that your mom was in law enforcement. So that's amazing, and yeah, I'm happy
she raised me well.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, I had no idea. And my husband's abused like every night at work. So it's horrible. And he has the ability to put up with it. I mean, he doesn't put up with full on abuse, but he puts up with the verbal abuse. And I don't know how he does it. It wouldn't work for me, but that's why he's the police officer and not me. But I want to jump into your Trump administration, everything that you did under Trump and what your experience was like.
Oh my goodness. So when I got out of the Navy in 2014, I was using my GI Bill. I went to Washington State University, Vancouver, and was majoring in strategic communications, which I'm very glad I chose that. It's one of my favorite. Communications and computers are my two favorite things in the world and my best skill sets. But
Nice.
I needed a little bit more because, I don't know, college wasn't taking my full time. I was taking a little bit more extra than usual for the semester. I just wanted to get my degree, check that box off. Like I think a lot of veterans who get out just want to just get their degree, just so people will say, well, do you have your degree when doing job interviews? Well, no, but I was in the military for 6, 7, 8 years. Isn't that job experience? Well, today, not so much, unfortunately, which I don't agree with. So
Right.
I
Me
wanted to
either.
find ways to, work on my professional skill sets and also serve the community. And I saw the rise of a presidential candidate that was willing to boldly challenge the status quo. And I knew I had to do everything I could to help him. So I kind of stumbled into the local campaign headquarters for the West Coast was in Vancouver, Washington. And so
Nice.
I stumbled in through the front doors and said, I want to help. And they said, we got plenty of things for you to do. So I was building signs 7 days a week while going to school full time. And I was happy doing it. And eventually they asked, they needed additional staff to do just the things that I love, digital communications and some of the processing of volunteers for Trump Talk and all those outlets. And I applied for the job, and I love to brag about this, but the month after I became a paid member of the Trump team, we had processed more volunteers for Washington State alone than Texas had. So,
Oh, wow. That's huge.
yeah,
That's
it
incredible.
didn't last long. Texas eventually beat us in the numbers, but our heart was in there in the beginning. And
That
so,
is
and then
awesome.
we won the general election. And that was kind of it. I thought it was over. I would go find a job and go find something else to do. But I got a phone call, and they said I had about 2 weeks to get out to Washington, D.C., to go work for the Trump administration. And I said, absolutely. I'm used to living out of a suitcase from all my days in the Navy. So I packed up a
Nice.
suitcase and I went to D.C. And it was one of the most memorable events for me because January 20th, 2017, I have my inauguration tickets and everything, but I couldn't go to inauguration. There was work to do. So we were all sitting in the Department of Interior and we were watching the inauguration live, which was just happening a few blocks down the road from us. You could hear the crowd a little bit.
How
And
cool.
as soon as Mr. Trump swore in and became the president, we all put our hands up. We swore our oath, and we hit the ground running. We ran, we went and found our offices, and we got to work.
That
So
is
I
that
started
gives me
off.
chills. So cool.
Yeah, I started off as the special assistant to the Secretary of Interior, Ryan Zinke. But I only did that for about 6 months because it was the beachhead team. It was the first initial wave of about 300 people only in Washington, D.C., representing the president. And so so I did the special assistant thing for a while. I traveled with the secretary, made sure that he was going where he needed to be, saw a lot of parts of the country I've never been to, national parks, which I never really had the time to visit.
Right.
And I loved it. And everybody, I think that was one of the best experiences I had for the administration because it was a lot of fun. I love to travel. I love to see new things. And
Right.
that's what I did for that initial time. But then I went over to the Selective Service System as a special advisor,
Okay.
which was fun. I did that for about 6 or 7 months. Same thing, like I said, comms and computers. I use those skills to really get the best out of any job I do. So in my case, I can do something in about an hour that would probably take the regular government employee about a week to do.
Wow. Probably
So
true.
I got
Yeah.
6 months. Then I lost you for a minute. There we go. We're back. I'm really nervous about this Comcast internet. But eventually I proved myself. I showed that I'm good at what I do, and I was promoted to chief of staff of the agency, and that's what
Okay.
I did for the majority of the Trump administration. I had that job for almost 3 years, and
Wow.
we made a lot of things happen at Selective Service, and we got a lot of great things done.
That's awesome. I listened to your TED Talk and you were talking about how people thought that there was a draft happening. Like there was some social media storm, and so people thought there was a draft looming. And you addressed that, and you were talking about like perception and then how the social media and media in general can just mislead the masses, and it caused this unnecessary concern. What was that like, putting the fire out on your end?
Oh, just the timing was perfect actually, because the TED Talk was scheduled, 6-7 months in advance, and then all this crazy stuff happened with the Soleimani and Iran, and so it kind of gave me something to shift my presentation about, which was perception, and it was interesting because I was running the public affairs shop for Selective Service as well as the acting associate director of public and intergovernmental affairs. So we were dealing with a lot of the press inquiries. We were dealing with a lot of the congressional inquiries. And that was kind of my moment to say, there's no draft happening. Every time something happens significant in our society, everybody wants to believe that it's, a draft is happening. A draft is imminent. That's not true. It takes a lot. If there was a draft, we would be ramping up for it. We would be talking about it. A lot of young people in the draft age, 18 to 25 men, they think that it's just a push of the button and you get something in the mail. This is the government. Nothing ever happens that fast. So if there was a draft, you would hear about it from your elected officials. They would be discussing it. They would be debating it. And eventually Congress and the president would have to agree on something for once back then. And that's when a draft would happen. But as a third tier of defense, it's very unlikely. It would have to be something very, very, very serious for a draft to happen. And I can tell you that they're never going to use that. Not never, but not for a while, unless something big happened.
Yeah, no, that's it is pretty wild how this misperception can go out and just cause such unnecessary. I mean, if you think about it, look at COVID right now. I'm like, these people, there's still people wearing gloves at the grocery store. The double masks. I mean, oh my gosh. I know my friend Wade popped something up there and it said, I wear 8 masks. He's totally kidding. But
I saw that.
I thought I saw you.
But it's about that. As a strategic communications major, you learn about messaging and dissemination of it, and how you can, as long as you repeat it and you repeat it, people are going to believe it. And you repeat it enough and you repeat it loudly, and to a point where it took over our entire lives for the last year. It doesn't matter if it's correct information or not. It doesn't matter if it's inconsistent. It was about what is being said now, and why aren't you doing it, or why aren't I doing it?
Yeah, exactly. No, it's crazy. It's madness. Okay, I want to talk about, unless you're not ready to pivot, but you're doing some big things in Southwest Washington and running for Congress. And I want to know, one, what made you decide that this was the right move, and how did you kick that off?
Well, I actually, after my job ended on January 20th, that was a rough day for me. I was looking at West Virginia, like a lot of Washingtonians are. They were just looking at.
What's with West Virginia?
It's just a red state. It's just a place where people are more like-minded. The policies, the laws. You don't have to worry about. Frankly, Jay Inslee, if he wanted to come take our guns, I wouldn't put it past him to sign something and then just make it happen, because he's so emboldened to it. I don't want to fearmonger or anything like that, but I don't think that we would have those problems in West Virginia or, any of the other more conservative states. I think the local politicians would be more, they would defend the people as opposed to whatever weird agendas are going on right now. So and at the same time, West Virginia property is very cheap. You can get a nice 10, 15 acres on a 1,200 square foot house for what would cost you for a size of land this big in Washington State. So, and I wonder that myself. Why do they elect Manchin? That's one of the questions that just popped up. I just think that it's an interesting thing with politics, name recognition, the devil, he's very popular in that area. And I think as long as he, doesn't go too far left, they will always keep him in that spot. So that was a great question. Thank you.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
anyways, back to, I got a little distracted, but so I was looking
It's
at West
my
Virginia,
fault.
but no, that's okay. But really my home, the district, the congressional district, Southwest Washington, where I grew up in, the hometown representative, Jamie Herrera Butler, voted to impeach President Trump. And I don't know why she did that, besides maybe a haphazard decision. Maybe she's spending too much time with her Democrat friends in Washington, D.C., because she doesn't really do too much in the home district. But that was one reason why. And I've been looking at this seat for a long time because that representative was one of them that decided to keep Obamacare in 2017. And there were some other things that she did that I'm not a fan of. And I look at that seat and I say, why do we have this representation there that doesn't actually represent us of Southwest Washington? She represents herself, her personal agenda. And sadly, the way that the political system is, it's very hard to take on an incumbent without justification to do it. People will always vote for the person on the list, the incumbent, because I call it the devil politics. She's not the greatest, but we don't know about the rest of these people. That's a terrible way to vote people into office. So with this opportunity that arisen, and everybody's upset, at least anybody who's paying attention in Southwest Washington, they don't want her anymore. But she is emboldened to the fact that she thinks she's going to keep the seat. She'll maybe go to the Democrat. The Democrats right now see her as a hero. And they're going to eat her alive when the general election happens if she makes it to that point and there's a Democrat for them to vote for. So she'll try to weasel her way through the primary, but I'm not going to let that happen. I'm going to do everything I can to keep her from getting that seat. Keeping that seat.
Now, didn't she recently said something like, I'm not going anywhere, right? Didn't she openly admit that she probably realizes it's her time to go, but the ego gets in the way in many cases and they can't help themselves. So I don't know.
And that's the scary thing about. No, that's the scary thing. It is. They become, they always start off as a regular person, just like you and just like me. And something happens in Washington, D.C. that kind of corrupts them and morphs them. I don't know what it is. I spent 4 years in Washington, D.C., and I walked away the same person I was. And I intend to stay that way because I'm very consistent. But something's going on there, and I don't know what it is, because she uses liberal talking points to describe her voter base. And that's the worst thing that you can do in a conservative district like this.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, growing up there, it's like 4-wheel drives, you've got American flags, you've got Blue Lives Matter flags. I mean, come on. Like, that's like, and it's so frustrating that Washington State, just like here in Oregon with Portland, you're dictated by Seattle. So it's very disappointing that there is a local leader that really, her ideals belong more up in the Seattle area, unfortunately. So yeah, I think it's, I think number one, show people that it's time for her to go. That's like the main objective. I'd love to see her out of that seat, out of that position. Because like I said, I want to move back to Southwest Washington at some point in the near future. So this impacts me too.
I would like to stay in Southwest Washington. We have to stand and we have to fight. We cannot let the liberals take over our district. I mean, we have to make this district last for at least 10 more years. Before that time, I think people will eventually wake up the left gets a little bit more emboldened and a little bit more
Right.
crazier with the policies that they introduce. If we can fight and hold the ground, I think we'll have an American awakening, a Washingtonian awakening in the next
like it.
decade. And I want to be in that seat to make sure that we can push that up.
Absolutely. Correct me if I'm wrong. So in 2016, wasn't Washington State almost as close as, let's see, I believe it was like a 45% of Trump, or people voted for Trump. Like,
Trump
I feel
wins
like
this district.
wins
This
that district,
is
but I believe Washington State as a whole, I believe it was really close between Hillary and Trump in 2016, which just shows you it's possible. I'm pretty sure. I'll check
I'm
on
gonna have
that.
to double check that, but like I was on the campaign in 2016, and it was one of those things where even though you're probably not going to win the state, you still got to do everything that you can to get the message out and try to win at least.
All right, so we have.
So there's a way for people to donate to my campaign. If you go to wadiforcongress.com, WADI for Congress.com, and you click the donate button, that's a way to get me some money and help get a little bit more messaging. We're going to work on commercials. We have to do printouts. There's a lot of money in politics, and that's why you don't see a lot of people running. A lot of people want to run for office, but once they realize the technicalities and all the things that they have to do to run for office, it's rough. And it is, the first year is a fundraising grind, and any contribution can help, because I think Jamie Herrera Butler has about $1.5 million in her wallet right now. And we do have other candidates out there, and we're all asking for money. But I ask, if you think that I'm the candidate to represent Southwest Washington and you just want some integrity in Congress in general, please go to my website, wadiforcongress.com, donate $5, $20, and if you can do 100, I'd really appreciate that. And if you're a Southwest Washington resident listening, volunteer for some, volunteer your time, come work on the campaign, come help me out, because we can win this seat. It's just going to take a lot of work with 1.5 years to the primary.
Right. No, that's excellent. I love that you're doing this. I know what you're talking about. Just a few minutes left here, and I'll just chime in. I had thought about running for something at one point, and it was funny. I mentioned that to you when we first talked, and you were like, yeah, you're like on the phone asking for money for like the first year. I'm like, that sounds horrible. I'm like, I would hate that. That would put me out of my comfort zone so far. But
it's very awkward.
for you. It's amazing. That would be so awkward. I'm like, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'd be like beet red the first time probably. but I give it to you, because that is not easy. It is not glorified. It's a lot of work, and I think it's fantastic that you are doing this. You're putting yourself out there like you are, and with your history, with everything else you've done for our country. I mean, God bless you. What an amazing patriot, and I'm so happy that we were able to get you on the show today. And
it was a huge honor for me. Thank you.
I'll be watching closely to see how things turn out for you. And like I said, happy to help you out however I can. I'm not as technical as you, but I can help you out in whatever realm you need.
I really appreciate that. Thank you.
I appreciate you very much. And all right. Well, I want to say thank you guys for tuning into KSok Uncensored Southwest Washington. And like I said, we're going to be splitting Washington into 2 segments. There's just so much to cover. And Seattle is a whole other ball game. And I argue that Seattle is worse than Portland. And we have 2 Seattle residents that are willing to chime in and put themselves out there. And I am going to hang on. Don't go anywhere. I am going to wander into Keith Sanders' office here, his glowing blue office, and hopefully we'll have a little banter. I'm sure he has a bone to pick with me again today. Not sure what I've done. I purposely didn't call him my 2 cents like I did last week, so just steering clear of that.
Hey,
whole,
there I am. I made it. I made it. Just barely made it.
Nice. I'm like running out of hey.
Yeah, we were waiting
So-
on Juan there. Juan, all your fault, buddy.
what
He's
he-
beating
he's
himself
on
up
the
in there.
right-
You guys can't see it, but he is.
Oh
Okay,
my
Sok,
God.
I have a very interesting fact for you for the week. Are you ready for the interesting fact?
I'm ready. Yes.
I do not have a bone to pick with you. It's crazy.
Oh my
We had a good one.
No,
We're
that's
having a
so
good
boring.
handoff. It's a little bit
All right.
boring. I've been really
Yeah.
stressed today, and I was like, "What is my bone to pick with KSok today?" And I just couldn't pull one out. I watched your show though, really good show.
Good. Thank you. Yes, great Patriots on today. It's really exciting. We had to extend to an hour because it was just like we can't. There's too much goodness here to pack into 30 minutes. So,
Oh, I love it.
so that's
Awesome.
good. But thank you so much, and please have something for me. I like trash talking. Maybe it's my turn. Maybe I'm gonna have to trash talk you next week.
So you
So,
cannot claim that you like trash talking if you don't do it yourself. It's a two-way street, okay? You got to give
Oh,
it.
yeah.
I want it.
Oh yeah. All right.
Bring it to
I have
me.
to think about it. Yeah, I'll have to. Well, I could call you out for that Strength Finder book, but I'll leave it there.
Still don't know what
But,
you're talking about. Hey, nice to see you, KSok.
right.
Have a good night.
You
Hey, Juan, roll it for me. Let's get it going. Good evening and welcome to Here's My 2 Cents with me, your host, Keith 2 Cent Sanders. We're live all over the place as usual. We're live on Facebook. We're live on YouTube. We're live on ramtv.live. I'm live on TikTok over here. We got a good number of people. If you guys want, you can head on over to Facebook. Check us out, Right America Media on Facebook. Glad to be here with you guys. Hectic day. A lot going on. Big week, bigger day. The man himself has risen with us so close to Easter in the way that some people perceive Biden. Yes, I use that phrase on purpose. He has risen. He has come forth. He has brought us truth. Maybe not from the heavens as someone else did with tablets, but he just about did, at least the way that he was treated. He came down with nothing but truth for us and just bestowed it upon us. And us plebes and us simple people just begging for the morsels. Please, Papa Joe. Please, Papa Joe. Please tell me something. Please tell me something. And how I also need to see it. It was as if the groundhog had come out from his slumber and had finally just meandered his way out and took a little peek, and he was warmly welcomed. And they said, "Come here, Papa Joe. Come here, Papa Joe. It's okay. We're going to be nice to you, Papa Joe." I mean, there was leaked correspondence that said they did not want any pushback on this president in his first press conference, which, mind you, is 63 days into his presidency. You're going to hear this phrase a lot today. Can you imagine if this were Trump? Please, I want you to put blinders on through the show today. Insert Trump into the situation and see if this is the same situation that we would have had with this presidency. The media, we've talked about this before, their complicity and how they've been complicit in this presidency and him getting away with absolutely whatever he wants. He promised to be Mr. Transparency, and he has been anything but. The press did anything but press him. The kids at the border are in anything but cages. The Dems want common sense gun reform. And here's my 2 cents on government solves all your problems. Big topic of the day. I've already made my jokes about it. Big topic of the day. First time we get to hear from Papa Joe. I'll start off with, I would say, an 8 out of 10 on the Joe performs scale. I think he meandered a fair amount. I don't want to fall into the trap of relativity here. I don't want to feel like, well, he didn't have too many times where he just meandered off into the nowhere. So that's an improvement. I'm not going to give him that credit. And he definitely completely lost his train of thought one time. He just fully just did one of those ones he did at the debate, as I stutter myself, at the debate where he would just start talking and then just, okay, I'll just give it back to you. I'm out of time. He didn't go so far as to say that he was out of time, but he definitely on multiple occasions said, I've gone too far into detail. No one's going to stop you, Joe. No one's going to stop you. You can do all the talking you like. We don't hear from you. I know Jen Psaki likes to say that the president has some 40 plus question and answer sessions. I've showed this to you previously on my show. If you guys haven't seen it, check it out. You can go on my YouTube channel. Here's my 2 cents on YouTube. I have a library of all my podcasts up over there. I like to see you guys over there as well. Check out Here's My 2 cents on YouTube. I like to see you subscribe over there. That would be nice. Jen Psaki has said there's been some 40 plus question and answer sessions. And by question and answer sessions, she means people scream questions and Joe Biden doesn't answer them. Those are question and answer sessions as the handlers in the room, and I do mean handlers, say, all right, folks, time to go. All right, folks, time to go. These are question and answer sessions. So you can see why people have been waiting and chomping at the bit for their opportunity to finally ask questions to the leader of the free world, to ask questions to the most powerful human being on the planet, and expect and demand answers. Because don't forget, friends, don't forget out there, just because he's the most powerful man in the world, it's not because of him. It's because of us. This government exists and is given the power to govern through the consent of us. So when he is up there, he is absolutely representing us. If you voted for him or if you didn't vote for him, he represents all of America. He works for us. He has the power that he has to be the most powerful man, the most influential person on the planet. If he had more of a backbone, he would probably fill that. But I digress. He has this power because of us, because of the consent we have given to him in order to govern us. Now, I've shown you all those times previously, like I was mentioning, and everything that Psaki has to say. I went online on my social media, actually on TikTok specifically, and I posed the question, if you voted for if you voted for Biden or you voted against Trump and you believed him, Biden that is, and you believed him that he was going to be transparent. After 63 days of no press conferences, 40 plus question and answer sessions where he doesn't answer any questions, you feeling bamboozled? Are you feeling stupid? If I was looking at Trump, let's say I was a former Trump supporter, and I go, I just don't like his approach. He's a bully. He's mean. I don't like him. I don't like the tweets. I don't like the way he treats other people. I can't vote for Trump again. And I got Biden over here. I know that guy. He's a pretty nice guy. Yeah, he's telling me he's going to be transparent. I like transparency. I don't like the tweets, but I like the transparency. Yeah, I like that. I could go for that. Maybe I could hold my nose on the policy because he's going to be transparent while he's doing it. There's still some level of accountability there. Wouldn't you feel kind of stupid at this point? I would feel kind of stupid at this point. There's no transparency, folks. There's none. And the sycophants, big word of the day number one, the sycophants in the media are not going to do anything. We're going to get into that a little bit later. They're starting to get a bit antsy. They're chomping at the bit just a little bit, just like a little bit. Now, this may be towards an ultimate goal later on. Your boy has made a prediction. This is not misinformation or disinformation. Don't take me off of YouTube for saying this. I just have a prediction that Joe Biden's not going to make it a year. I can have an opinion. My opinion is I don't think that he's got the wherewithal to make it. I think that some things are being put in place so that way we get used to the idea. For example, go on to whitehouse.gov. It is the Biden-Harris administration. Not the Biden administration, the Biden-Harris administration. Look at all the correspondence. It's Biden-Harris. Little subtle things they do to get you used to it. You see Vice President Harris often speak at the presidential podium, the one with the presidential seal. Just little ways of getting used to it. We know, and it's been reported on, that Kamala Harris, the vice president, has been taking phone calls with foreign leaders, just so you're used to it. Now, the president accidentally referred to her as the president. I'll give him a slip up, but it was a funny bit. He referred to her as President Harris. A little too soon, Joe. A little bit too soon. October, buddy. Remember, we talked about this. It's October. Now he's got her handling the crisis at the border. First one, imagine if this were Trump. Oh, you don't have to imagine if this were Trump. When Trump put Pence in charge of the COVID crisis, if you will, the pandemic that happened last year, they said that he wasn't a strong leader. He wasn't conveying a message of strength. He couldn't handle it. He wasn't taking it seriously. Does that apply here? Nope, doesn't apply here. Vice President Harris, she's going to handle it, just like Joe Biden did when he was vice president. He wants to tout how he stopped the flow and he reduced the number of people. I'll get into a little bit more of that later as well. There were some good ideas there. You know me, I don't always bash on Joe. I 99% of the time bash on Joe, but that does qualify as not all the time. Back to whether or not this man is transparent. He's not. He's just not. Is he trustworthy? I don't know. Do you know? I don't know. I don't know because he's not transparent, because we don't know anything of what's going on. I can go off of what I do know. I know he's a 47-year politician. Does anybody know any politicians that have been in office in some form or another for 47 years and they're known as honest? I don't know any. Apparently, I know one. Must be Papa Joe. He's as trustworthy as they get. Just listen to the media. They're the ones who are going to tell you how absolutely transparent the man is and how trustworthy he is. But now, like I said earlier, they're getting a little antsy themselves. I don't know what you thought you guys were going to get. I don't know what people who voted for him really thought they were going to get. Did you believe that he was a moderate? Did you believe he was a moderate? Which is to say he was going to work with the other side, which is to say he wasn't going to succumb to the far left. He wasn't going to push socialist ideas. He wasn't going to push for a mass influx of people over the border. Did you guys really think this is what you were getting? When you've got Jake Tapper himself saying that this is not transparency, you've got a little bit of a problem. You've got a little bit of a problem. So the calls for transparency have been swelling and swelling and swelling. So finally, we get the big presser. If you didn't get to see it, and I forgive you if you didn't, your boy was there. I watched the whole thing. Let me tell you what you missed. You missed the press being downright apologetic in their approach if and when they barely press him on anything. You had him blaming Trump for absolutely everything. You had some meandering, and you also had the press reminding him what the questions were. This is what you had at the press conference. The big topic at the press conference obviously was the crisis at the border. And of course, this is a crisis. I'll get into that. Just give me 1 second on that one. But what I found really interesting was you had the shootings that happened in Atlanta and Boulder, Colorado, Atlanta, Georgia, Boulder, Colorado. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if we got any of that. I'll go back in this a little bit. And I think it's because they have a narrative problem on that one. I want to talk about that one in a bit as well. You also have the Andrew Cuomo Me Too allegations that are going on. Nothing going on there. And yet almost everything that we had was on the border. You have HR 1, which I told my folks over here on TikTok, we're going to talk about it tonight. HR 1 is essentially the Democrats' approach to a lack of faith in the security of our elections. HR 1 is passed the House. You have S1 in the Senate. And these are massive overhauls to the way that we do elections in this country. And we didn't get to any of it. But we did get to the crisis at the border. And of course, identifying it as a crisis is important. Look no further than number 45, who said you have to correctly identify the problem in order to address the problem. If you have Islamic terrorism, you must address Islamic terrorism. He caught a lot of flack on that one. Caught a lot of flack on everything, obviously. We have to address what the problem is. I'll give you an example. Let's say my roof fails, completely rots out. Okay, bad roof, get a new roof. Replace it. Roof goes bad again. Wow, I got another bad roof. Fix the roof. Roof goes bad again. Turns out, problem is not a bad roof. Problem is I have termites and they're eating my roof. If I keep addressing bad roof and fixing it, I'm going to continue to have to fix it because I have not addressed the actual problem. In this situation, this make-believe situation, my roof is bad. I address the wrong problem. Same situation here. If we don't address what the actual problem is, that it is a crisis. Are you overflowed? That's one level of response. Is the overflow lasted too long and we don't have the manning? That's a different response. If it is a crisis at the border to which you cannot adequately apply the law and adequately move these people to where they need to be to get them in and out of the system as efficiently as the law mandates, you have a crisis. If you're approaching it as a big problem, if you're approaching it as an obstacle or anything other than a crisis, you're going to keep getting a rotted roof. We have to know what the problem is here. Pointing the finger at Trump by saying, well, the numbers were going up over Trump, which somehow correlates to that's why the numbers are going up now. That doesn't do anything. Speaking of talking about Trump being the cause here and the numbers going up, I've had a lot of people on social media say, well, the numbers were going up under Trump. There was a spike under Trump. Okay, how does that have anything to do with what's going on right now? Well, it went up under Trump, so it's not Biden's fault. Biden's the president. Biden has put in place policies which are affecting what's going on at the border. Biden has removed policies which is affecting what's going on at the border. But if we could somehow say, well, Trump had numbers that were going up, so that must be why they're going up now. Correlation does not mean causation. For example, more people have ice cream in the summer. More people get sunburned in the summer. Ice cream causes sunburn. See? That's what we're doing here. Correlation equals causation. That's not what happened here. Let's look at what is actually happening. Let's identify it correctly. Let's approach it correctly. I was on Council of Colonels, which you all can find Tuesday nights at 7:30 here on ramtv.live or on Right America Media on Facebook. And I was speaking with them on Tuesday, and I mentioned to them that we have to be able to address this correctly, or else we're not going to be able to do it. And I'm going to keep harping on this. This is really important that we understand that we have to approach these problems for what they are. Joe today gave a little speech when he started off. He wanted to point at Trump a lot throughout it. He did want to tout some facts while he was talking. Did he get spoken over? Did he get debated with by the press? Was he constantly interrupted? Of course not. Absolutely, of course not. He wanted to point out in his presser today how these numbers went up under Trump, but what he left out was, how did Trump address it? He did not bring up that Trump put in place what's called the Remain in Mexico plan, where Trump worked out with Mexico, hey, when I catch these guys coming over illegally, they're going back to you. That's known as a deterrent, Joe. That's known as a way to keep people from doing something. If they know there's a consequence, less people are likely to try to break that law. Joe wanted to repeatedly today mention how folks don't want to just upsell everything they have, make this huge trek and come to America. They're leaving a bad situation. Well, Joe, if they have a deterrent, like, I don't know, a wall and laws that are enforced and mandates in place that make them stay in Mexico, you're going to have less people that are going to up and sell their stuff and make the journey because life is bad where they are. Call me cruel. Sounds like it. I'm listening to myself talk. Call me cruel. It comes to a fundamental question of what is our responsibility to these other places. I understand we have the means to help. And to Joe's credit, he did talk about how he worked directly with the people of these other countries. For example, I'll give him some credit today. He didn't work directly with the government of Honduras, I think is what he cited. He worked with the localities in order to put up more streetlights because their studies showed that more streetlights lowered crime. So what he did there was he bypassed the corrupt government in order to get money in there. Not a terrible plan. However, how much of that is truly our responsibility? And I guess in this representative government, we could, I don't know, pass some laws where people who represent us can go there and pass laws, or we could just have one person who decides, I'm going to spend $86 million on a hotel. He's spending $86 million on hotels, by the way, because of how over capacity they are at the border. Even though in the presser today, he wants to say that he's sending these people back. He's sending them back. Well, the $86 million for the homeless that are going into the hotels would say you're not sending them back, Joe. It just feels like it to me. When you have a catch and release, but you're not calling it catch and release, doesn't feel like you're sending them back to me, Joe. When you have a 1,556% overcapacity for the children's holding centers, not kids in cages. I'll show you more of that later. Not kids in cages. That doesn't seem to me like you're sending people back. And back to the $86 million. Does anyone else here love that out of nowhere, the president can just go, here's $86 million. I thought that the Congress controlled the money. Where'd that money come from? How do they do that? Call me ignorant. I feel really ignorant. Where did that money come from? I have no idea. But about $86 million. How? And did the press ask? Nope. If you missed it, the press didn't ask. They surely did not ask. I just want to know how do they do it? How do they just come up with this money? We have separation of powers. One of those powers is the power of the purse. It goes to the Congress. But the executive branch, boom, $86 million. How about some transparency, Joe? Can you trace that for me? Can you say I pulled it from this budget that was approved? Can you say that it came out from this law from here, that I have the authority as the commander-in-chief? Can you do something for us, Joe? Because all you've told us, and the press didn't hold you to account, was pull $86 million out of thin air and use it for people who are here illegally. Don't mind the homeless that we have here. Don't mind the homeless veterans that we have here. We have people that are coming across illegally. They need a place to stay. Back to the border crisis. When the media starts covering you, Joe, and saying that you've got a problem with transparency, you've got a real problem, Joe. Juan, can you please play for me cut 4? Let's see what it's like for these children in these facilities.
More kids coming into U.S. custody, but just not enough space to put them in shelter. So that means that these kids are staying in Border Patrol facility for prolonged periods of time. And those are facilities that are not intended for them. They look like jail-like conditions, like prison cells with concrete walls and concrete benches. And these kids are spending more than the 3-day limit that they're supposed to, according to federal law. So the administration racing here to find enough space for these kids.
Jail-like conditions, not kids in cages. I told you we were going to talk about this later. Not kids in cages, everyone. Jail-like conditions. Did you see the strain as she said the administration is racing to address this problem? Did anybody ever do that for Trump when he had to race to fix a problem, to come in to help people out? When he brought in the naval ship, I think it was called the Mercy, into New York, and everyone said he couldn't do it, and he was able to work with the local authorities there and then got that ship in, which they didn't even use anyway, but it was quite the undertaking to get it there. Did anyone say he's racing to address this problem? Of course not. But when Joe has kids in jail-like conditions, not kids in cages, when you have them in jail-like conditions, then of course you have to strain and you have to show the empathy. Like you must embody the empathy of Papa Joe. We have more coming up on that soon. We have a lot more on this actually. Last week we did, here's my 2 cents on the press or gross. Here's more of it. I told you then, I'm telling you now, I could do this topic every single week. Maybe I'll just reference it every week just to show you how right I am. But they did not disappoint me this week. They absolutely did not disappoint. I just ask for some level of objectivity. Do this thing, they used to call it reporting. Let's hear about a topic, let's investigate it, and then we can report on it to people. Let's hold people to account. Let's hold the powerful to account. Now, am I advocating, I mentioned it earlier, am I advocating that I want them to yell and scream over the president or his press secretary or to debate with him or to cut him off or to do that thing that Jim Acosta did where he would just keep repeating the same question, keep repeating the same question, keep repeating the same question? I don't want that actually. I want an open and honest dialogue. The open part is I ask you questions and then you answer them. When you say things that aren't necessarily in line with maybe what I have found, I then come back with, well, I'm hearing you say this portion. What is that? It sounds mundane and silly that I have to say this out loud, but it would just be so nice, especially if you identify in the same party or ideology as the person you're covering. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Let's see how they've been holding them accountable and how they've been objective. Juan, please play for me cut 5.
We have spoken with several migrants over the last several days, Andrea, both on this side of the border and over in Mexico, in Matamoros, Mexico, that said that they were encouraged by the change in administration. Many of them didn't know the specifics of President Biden's border policies, but what they did know is that he was not President Trump. And some of them did feel that now would be the time to come to the border.
Sorry about that. I was interacting over here. Did you hear the way he put a little context into that? I love context. I love context. You know what context is? I talk about it all the time. Context is, let me tell you how to see this. The context he threw in there was he did a tiny bit of reporting. He did a little bit of reporting when he said, well, they're telling us on this side and on the other side that, yeah, they're coming here because of Joe, not necessarily knowing his policies to help out Joe. We must help him out at all costs. Why don't you just say, we've been specifically told they're coming here because of Joe Biden, full stop. Why are you assigning any more to it? Why? Be objective. I asked the man a question. This is what he told me. He's basically covering for him. He had to insert his own portion there. He couldn't just tell us. Biden has everything to do with this. Despite what he said in his presser today, that it was going up under Trump. Trump had spikes as well himself. Oh, no, I dropped my phone. Sorry about that, guys. Let me get this set up over here. All right, we're back. These things happen. Back to what Biden has said and done. He wants to go up there during his presser and say, well, they're coming here because I'm a nice guy. No, Joe, no. They're coming here because of your policies. They're coming here because they know you got rid of the Remain in Mexico mandate. I'd already talked about it earlier. Trump said, if I catch you coming over, you're going back to Mexico. You got rid of that, Joe. Day one, Joe. Day one, you got rid of that. They know you're taking in all the children. There was a story one of the reporters told, and I call absolute BS, 100% BS. This reporter said that she had talked to a 9 and 10-year-old who had walked here from Honduras by themselves. Does anyone trust their 9-year-old to walk to the corner store and make it back? You're telling me a 9-year-old and a 10-year-old, you said go that way until you hit America, and they did. And nothing horrible happened to them. I won't say what they are. I'll let you fill in the blanks. They were able to find food, shelter, water. 9 and 10-year-old. Someone tell me you would trust your child to walk to the corner store and back. Now, Joe Biden's going to say, people on the other side are going to say, they're so desperate. They're so desperate. Okay, but is there incentive on the other side, Joe? Is there an incentive to send your child north? Then Joe says, well, they stick a phone number on a bracelet. They stick a phone number in their pocket. Great. Thank you for giving them more ways to ensure the kid is going to come over the border. They keep wanting to say, who would do that? And then in the other breath, say, they're doing it because it's so bad there. Well, which one is it, Joe? Would you not do it or would you do it? And if there's an incentive on the other side, which is they know you're taking in the children, and once the children are on the other side, they've got a phone number, and guess what? That phone number goes back to mom. Joe in the presser says, we'll probably send that kid back. Right, Joe. Right. Joe does want to address the overpopulation in Donna, Texas specifically, which I'm going to show you guys here in a little bit. And he wants to say that he's now opening up, I believe it's Fort Bliss, which is in El Paso. And now, if you come over and you get caught, you're going to get to go to Fort Bliss where you get some nice accommodations. I mean, they're not the best. It's an Army base. I'm an Air Force guy. I got to tease you guys a little bit. I mean, it's not an Air Force base, but they're still going to get the accommodations. They know that they're going to be able to come over. And you can't, I've said it before, you can't continue to be Trump's fault. Your Department of Homeland Security Secretary Mayorkas himself has said it's an increase from last year. How can there be an increase, Joe, if it's the fault of the guy who's not there? You cannot have an increase if the guy isn't there and it be his fault. You're the president now, Joe, at least on paper. For now, you're the president and you promised to be transparent. Let me give you one more on this. Juan, can you please play for me cut 6?
Biden administration kept talking about transparency, and we're not getting any transparency here with what is happening at the border, that we have to get those images from a congressman who won't say where he got those images. It's very frustrating for not just journalists, but for the American public who want to know what's going on inside those facilities, those disturbing images.
All jokes aside, it's messed up. It's messed up what's going on at the border. And I do a lot of finger pointing. However, it goes back to when I say we have to identify what the problem is, and we also have to identify who is going to fix it. And right now we're being told it's going to be Kamala Harris, our VP. That's who I'm told is going to solve it. The media needs to do their job, please, to some degree. Please hold these people accountable. This is a terrible situation that is going on down at the border. And you have a part in this, media. You have a part in this. Why do you accept an answer of not today when you ask for access? Why do you accept that answer? Why? This is an absolutely horrible situation. And in a free society, which is governed by the people, we demand to see it. We demand it, and you produce it. You don't get to stand up there, Joseph R. Biden, and say, not now, not now. I'm going to show you that direct quote here in a little bit. I'm going to show you that. I want to introduce you to Project Veritas. If you don't know who Project Veritas is, it's an organization ran by James O'Keefe, and he does investigative journalism, and so does his outlet. He was actually congratulated by the president himself recently because Project Veritas had a lawsuit against the New York Times, which they won, and then they'll go to the next step from there. But they actually did the work. I see, hey, thank you for the present over here. You guys are awesome. Project Veritas did the work to find out what was going on inside those cages. Did the media do it? Nope. Sure didn't. Project Veritas was able to get some imagery. Juan, can you please play for me cut 7 and make sure that my mic is still up, please? I'd like to narrate over this one. Look, more. Separation like my kid has to do at school. Look at this. Look at all this. Not kids in cages. Definitely not kids in cages. Not kids in cages here, right, folks? All right, Juan, bring it back to me. Bring it back to me. There I am. There's your not kids in cages, folks. Not kids in cages, right? I mean, they told us they're not cages and they're plexiglass and there's no bars and chain link. Yeah, not kids in cages. It's just summer camp. Sleeping on the floor on top of each other. The CDC keeps changing the guidelines for them. Meanwhile, schools have to keep 3 feet of separation or 6 feet of separation. I get yelled at if I stand within 6 feet of somebody at the subway, but these kids who aren't tested are sleeping on the floor on top of each other in a pod in jail-like conditions. Sorry, in jail-like conditions, as they told me it was called. Here it comes again. Imagine if it were Trump. You don't even have to imagine. You do not even have to imagine if this were Trump in those exact same facilities. Those exact same facilities. When Trump had children in there, they were called concentration camps. There's a hack POS, human piece of garbage named Joe Scarborough over on MSNBC. He was saying at the time that, I see your presence over there, you guys are awesome. He was saying at the time that the children were being marched into showers. Absolutely, horrifically disgusting. Now, I can't talk about what he means there. And if you know, hey, you guys are awesome over here. Thank you for all the presents. If you know what I'm talking about, you know what I'm talking about. I want you to look it up. I can't say it here. Why? Because I want to stay on. Joe Scarborough can say horrible, disgusting things like this. Joe Scarborough can make analogies to children being marched to the showers, but I'm going to talk around it. I want you to look up what happened in Europe in the 1930s to a certain demographic. That's what he's referencing. I can't say it. I'm going to remain vague. Thank you so much over here. I'm going to remain vague because I would like to stay on. During the presser, they were asked if they could see the facilities. And in previous interviews that I've mentioned, Department of Homeland Security, Mayorkas has said no. You want to know the reason he gave? Take a quick guess. Take a quick guess. I see you over here. Take a quick guess. The reason. COVID. So those pictures I just showed you of the children sleeping on top of each other, some tested, some not, some positive, some not. I think they're separating them. I'll give them some credit. I've seen some pictures where I think they separate them. But that being said, we can't go in there because of COVID. But the kids can all be on top of each other. They can be at 1,556% capacity living in the same COVID world that I'm living in, but I can't go in there. You can't go in there. You're going crazy over here. The press can't go in there because of COVID. The children are sleeping on top of each other. Let's get to the actual presser. I've hinted around it a lot. I have some clips for you. We did a lot of work. I see you, Mikey. I think I got your name correct. Thank you so much over here. If you guys don't follow me on TikTok, find me at 2CentKSJ. Juan, throw that up there for me, please. At 2CentKSJ on TikTok. The guys are going crazy over here. So are the gals. I appreciate all of you. Let me set the scene for you. I need to set the stage. I got about 20 minutes left. I promised you I would get to HR1. It will happen today. I promise you. I promise you it'll happen. And if you know me, if I promise it, it'll definitely happen. I'm going to surmise for you what the press conference was in just a few words. A crap show, staged, rigged, BS, waste of time, and choreographed nonsense. When I show you a clip here in a second, you're going to see him going down a list. He had a list of names that he would talk to. Now, if that was because he had the questions already or not, I don't know that. But I can say it gives a bad impression. I can say it's not being very transparent when it looks like that. It matters, Joe. It matters. Oh my, he's going crazy over here. If you guys don't follow me, you need to follow me. Also, like I mentioned earlier, he lost track a couple of times. I don't want to go around giving him credit because it wasn't a lot. He lost track a couple of times. He meandered a whole lot. The press did have to remind him multiple times what the topic was. He went around the filibuster a few times. I'll talk about that here in a little bit. And then there was how the questions were phrased. Multiple times when talking about laws that are being passed at the state level, they were phrased, and I'm going to paraphrase here, they were phrased in a way to denigrate the Republicans, big word number 2, and then to tout Biden himself as the savior. For example, and I paraphrase, don't take me down for misquoting, I'm paraphrasing. Republicans are passing laws to restrict voting rights. Are they? Are they? It's to restrict voting rights? Or do you mean securing the election through voter ID laws? Through verifying the voter rolls? From ensuring those that are voting are legally voting? Is that restricting voting rights? But they get to, they're still going crazy over here. They get to say to their woke readers, look how woke I am. I'm not going to bend to these evil Republicans, these dirty, dirty Republicans. It's disgusting and I can't stand it, but we had to see a lot of it. The border was pretty much everything. You've heard me talk a lot about it today, but lack of transparency was brought up as well. Juan, could you please play for me cut 8? Let's see what they talked about on transparency.
Okay, Kristen.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Given the conditions that were just laid out at the migrant facilities at the U.S. border, will you commit to allowing journalists to have access to the facilities that are overcrowded moving forward?
I will commit when my plan very shortly is underway to let you have access to not just them, but to other facilities as well.
How soon will journalists be able to have access to the facilities? We've obviously been allowed to be inside one, but we haven't seen the facilities in which children are packed together to really give the American people a chance to see that. Will you commit to transparency on this issue?
I will commit to transparency, and as soon as I am in a position to be able to implement what we're doing right now.
That's that list I was talking about. Doesn't look so good, Joe. It doesn't look so good. You look like a puppet, Joe. You look like someone told you what to say. He had stacks of not only note cards, but papers, another notebook, another list. I mean, kudos for being prepared and I guess putting on the best image that you could. But Joe, you look like a puppet. You look like you're not in command of anything. Now let's get to the topic of transparency in that video. Are you going to be transparent? Yeah, when I'm ready. You going to let us do it soon? When I want to. As soon as what I have in play, I think is what he said, or I'm doing what I'm doing now, something that didn't make any sense. He wants to tell you, when I look good, then you can have all the transparency that you like. As soon as I look good, as soon as I get this looking real nice, something real nice, name the movie. As soon as he gets it looking good, then you guys can come on in. That was it. That was the pushback. That was probably the biggest pushback that happened in the entirety of that whole press conference. Asking once, can I see it? Getting a BS answer, and asking basically the same question the second time, getting the same answer in a louder voice. So he meant it. He meant it. He did that several times yesterday. When I was watching it, I had a true cliched WTF, and also a cliched, and it hurts me and it's cringy to say it, to go, honestly? Honestly, Joe? Who cares if your plans are in place, buddy? Who cares if the measures that you want to put in place have not yet taken effect? Joe, I hope your measures are great. I hope it's all sorted out. I'm not rooting for you to fail, buddy. If you're failing, I'm failing. I'm rooting for you to succeed, Joe. I really want your policies to work. I don't care if your policies haven't come into play yet. Joe, if we can't see the problem, we can't fix the problem. You don't just get to go on TV when things look better, Joe. Be transparent, buddy. Stand up. And this is what I was talking about on Council of Colonels that you guys can find 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Tuesday nights. It would have been a great moment for Joe or Kamala to say, you know what, folks? We inherited a tough situation. Give a bone to your side. Not really my fault. We inherited a tough situation. We're putting policies in place. We're putting measures in place. We're putting people on the ground. We're making changes. We're going to show you what we're doing. Here's what we're doing. Here's how we're going forward. I'd listen. I'd give them a shot. Would you give them a shot? I would. But instead we get, when I'm ready. Joe, the kids are in there now, buddy. They're in there now. Not later. Not later. They're in there now. They're being housed now. Show us now, Joe, not later. We deserve to know. We put you there. You work for us, as I've mentioned before. We want to know. The border wasn't everything today. The press conference was obviously everything. I had a whole other show for you guys planned for tonight. We had a lot. I put a lot into this yesterday. I was actually pretty tired yesterday after putting this show together for you guys. And then the press conference happened. I knew it was going to happen, but I was kind of hoping that it might have lasted 15 minutes and he'd give me an easy day. But he wasn't going to give me an easy day today. He talked about China as well. And it's important. It's important for him to talk about China. I think he did more meandering when it came to China. I think he did more patting of his own back, saying that he has a great relationship with President Xi. Actually, he had some very nice words to say for President Xi. Juan, can you please play for me cut 9? Let's hear what he had to say about President Xi.
And the third thing, and the thing that I admire about dealing with Xi is he understands. He makes no pretense about not understanding what I'm saying any more than I do him.
You admire him. How he's cozying up to dictators. He's a fan of despots and tyrants. That's what they said about President Trump when he was trying to work with North Korea. It's probably the same application. I'll be honest and say it's probably the same application. He's probably trying to have a good diplomatic relationship, and you probably should have a good diplomatic relationship. But back to the press, he's cozying up to dictators. He admires him, a despot, a tyrant. This is what we have in the office. Impeach, right? Am I crazy? I'm probably crazy. I know that. But I watched it for 5 years. The exact same situation. Just some bit. Again, I don't want them yelling and screaming at him. I don't want them playing the same games, but I still get to complain. I get to complain, right? I want to complain. I'm going to complain a little bit about it. But I'll tell you what, CNN, MSNBC, this is why your numbers are tanking. Tanking. Good old Brian Stelter had his worst week ever. Joy Reid's show, tanking. MSNBC as a whole, tanking. CNN, tanking. It's kind of hard when you don't have sources say, and if true, and if true. It's real hard to peddle what you have when you don't have a boogeyman at all times. When you and everyone you know on TV all get the same talking points, you get to say the same things and not be held accountable for any of them. I'm going to go over a couple more of the big ones. Then I promised you we're going to get to HR1. We're going to get to HR1. Let me talk to you a little bit more about some of the bigger ones that Joe Biden had to talk about. He wanted to talk about how when the kids come over, they're going to be treated humanely. Joe, yes, it is good to be humane. However, you're giving incentive. This is incentive. They know if my kid can get there, if my 9-year-old can walk 1,000 miles and get over the border by themselves, I have an opportunity to potentially get over. Joe also wanted to say, we're sending back singles. We're sending back families. You're going to have a real hard time on the left if they find out that you're sending back families, Joe. And it doesn't look like you're sending back families. It doesn't look like you're sending back families when you're releasing people to the United States, when there are reports that are showing that you're releasing some people into the United States without a date to return. Not that they're going to come back anyway, but it doesn't look like you're doing that, Joe. You talk about wanting to put in something in place where they would have to stay in Mexico. That's called Title 42. It was put in place by Donald J. Trump, the Remain in Mexico clause, which you signed out of executive order on day one, Joe. You had that policy in place, buddy. You had that policy in place. You want to talk about how nobody's just going to up and sell all their stuff and move here if they don't absolutely have to. I said it before. I'll say it again. Stop giving them incentive. Okay, do you guys feel like we talked about it enough? I think we beat this dead horse until it's glue. To quote a colleague of mine, I think we have absolutely beat this one up. Let's get into HR 1. I promise you, here comes HR 1. What is HR 1? HR 1, in my opinion, a summation, this is an opinion, is the Democrats' response to a lack of faith in the security of our elections. Polling has showed that some 86%, I believe, of Republicans have lost faith in the electoral process. And when you take into account the Democrats who have lost faith, you have a majority of people in this country have lost faith in the electoral process. I am not saying widespread voter fraud. I'm not talking about voter fraud. Don't take me down. I am talking about people losing faith. So not to give up an opportunity to grab power, not to give up an opportunity to centralize more of the government in DC, the Democrats said, we have an idea, we'll handle it. Now, I mentioned this live on TikTok beforehand. Juan, throw it up there at 2CentKSJ. Follow me over there. This is their way of grabbing more power in the federal elections. The Constitution says the states get to do it. They're going to try to pass a law, which they did in the House already, that says they get more centralized control. If you had lost faith in the election, or if potentially you were a Trump supporter, I'm not saying widespread voter fraud, if you're a Trump supporter who didn't necessarily believe everything you were being told, all the reasons that made you feel that way are in this bill. No voter ID necessary, universal mail-in ballots, and less accountability when it comes to the voting and the vote counting process. Less of it. I've got some, let me pull up an article here for you. CNN did a fact check. Gotta love when they do fact checks. They got fact check breaking down 10 claims with the Democrats' election bill. Let me give you a couple of them. They first have to set the stage for you. They always have to set the stage for you. Republicans, this was written by, so I don't get in trouble, Daniel Dale, Holmes Librand, and Tara Submarian. I hope I said your name correctly. I'm terrible. I know that. I'm an awful person. Republicans have attacked the bill, also known as HR 1 in its House form and S1 in the Senate, as a partisan power grab, I just said that will damage the country's democracy. Democrats have argued the bill is needed to preserve democracy in the face of widespread Republican efforts to restrict access to voting. I mentioned this earlier. They want to debunk the topic of undocumented immigrants and voter registration. Ted Cruz of Texas claimed, quote, under this bill, there's automatic registration of anybody. If you get a driver's license, if you get welfare payment, if you get unemployment payment, if you attend a public university, everyone knows there's millions of people here illegally who have driver's licenses. Fact check, because CNN tells us facts first. It's not true that the bill automatically registers anybody to vote. Yep, you got them. You got them. You got them. Square, right here. You nailed them. They go on to say the bill does not change current law banning people who aren't U.S. citizens, including undocumented immigrants, you mean illegal aliens, from registering to vote in the federal election, while the bill does require every state to adopt an automatic voter registration system. So you do have to automatically register everyone, or you don't. But it repeatedly makes clear that only citizens are eligible to be registered. However, you just told me that you're going to automatically register these people who have licenses, and we also know that you can get a license in these states. California comes to mind. You're going to tell me both of them at the exact same time. Let's get another one that they want to fact check. Topic here. This is all in HR 1, folks. This is HR 1. This has passed the House already. The House of Representatives has already passed this. Registration for 16-year-olds. West Virginia Secretary of State Mark Warner, a Republican, have to get that in there, expressed concerns about the automatic voter registration provisions, which I just talked about. Warner warned that the bill, quote, overrules checks and balances in our election security. It mandates automatic voter registration, including 16-year-olds. 16-year-olds, folks. Facts first. This needs context. There it is. Yes, my favorite. Context. I've talked to you about context in the past. Context, which is I'm going to give you some information, but I need you to see it a certain way. That's what this means. When they say I need to give you context, they give you the lens through which you need to see this. So they tell you this needs context. While it is true that the bill would require states to allow individuals as young as 16 to register to vote, the text explicitly says that nothing in the bill requires the states to do it. Got them again. You got them again. You guys are good. They go on to say, and that the bill has no effect on states' own voting age requirements. So which one is it? You affect the requirement if you allow it to be 16, then you have affected it. The policy of registering people before they turn 18, but not yet allowing them to vote, known as pre-registration, already exists in several states. So we might as well do more of it. I love it. It's also when they want to raise taxes. Well, you already have some taxes, so what's a little more? Or when they say you have some social nets out there, so what's some socialism? If it's a little bit's okay, then a little more is okay. And they always want to go there with it. Criminals in the vote. I'm going to give you one more. There's a lot more. I promised you I would get to it. I'm going to do some more for you next week. Maybe Papa Joe will go back into his hole and we won't see him for another 60 days and I'll have some more time to talk about some other things. Criminals and the vote. This bill, quote, is designed to get criminals to vote, said Cruz. This bill says if you're a murderer, if you're a rapist, if you're a child molester, we, the Democrats, want you voting. Facts first. And guess what they start off with? This needs context. The bill would not force states to allow incarcerated felons to vote. It would require states to allow people who committed felonies to vote once they are no longer incarcerated. So once you're out, you're not forcing the states to let them vote, but you're forcing them to let them vote. Am I fact-checking the fact check? Does this make any sense at all? One more time. Here we go. The bill would not force states to allow incarcerated felons to vote. It would require states to, okay, I got it. So if you're inside and you're a felon, no vote. Well, we don't want that. But if you are, as Senator Cruz said, if you are a murderer, if you are a rapist, if you are a child molester, then you get to vote. Yeah. It seems like that's exactly what this is. Okay, we're going to do a lot more of that next week. Stick around for more of that. I've got a couple minutes left. I really want to wind it down with, I try to be positive. I do. I try to be positive. We have our fun around here. I get a lot of feedback from people that say they like my approach, that I kind of say it with a smile. I am disturbed by a lot of what's going on. Something I preach a lot is 2022, folks. It's called the midterm elections. And I press this all the time. And if you get anything from me, I'm not saying I'm worth that much. I'm worth a lot. But if you get anything from me, I want you to get this. The midterm elections, 2020 was one of the most important elections we've ever had. 2022 may be more important. The speed at which they are passing generational changes is neck-breaking. It is neck-breaking. Schumer, to his word, said, buckle up. He wasn't lying. It's neck-breaking, and they know they have 2 years to do it. They have 2 years to do it. Because in 2022, we have the midterm election. Now, folks, I'm not trying to pander or to talk down to anyone. I just want to make sure that we all are on the same page. You have 2016, 2020, 2024. That's when the president is up for election. You also have a lot of other elections at the same time. However, in the midterms, which would have been 18, 22, 26, and so on, you have every single person in the House of Representatives, senators from the Senate, governors, local city councils, everything in between. Some of them are also up for election. Now, what usually happens, and this could work in our favor, what usually happens is whoever has the White House, this time it's the Democrats, usually they get a lower voter turnout in the midterm. This is our time to strike. This is when we tell our friends, do not sleep on 2022. This is when we get out the vote. This is when we vote out the rhinos. This is when we listen to number 45 and we vote in strong conservatives. We don't just vote in names that we know. We vote in strong conservatives. We vote out the rhinos. We vote out the Democrats. And we take back the House and we take back the Senate. And then we finally get those checks and balances back in play. That's when we can absolutely do it. I want to thank everyone for being here tonight. Thank you for being over here on my live TikTok. I'll be with you guys in a second and we can talk. And with all that being said, this has been my 2 cents. Have a good night, everyone.
Hey, this is Josh Barnes with Point of View, where we discuss the crucial questions that you have about the critical issues of our day from a biblical worldview. We believe that to be right about issues, you're going to have to be biblical about issues. Check out Point of View every Monday from 4 to 6 p.m. and every Tuesday night from 8 to 8:30 right here on Right America Media Network at ramtv.live. Join us for the next episode of Point of View and let the Bible change your perspective.
Hi, America. My name is Savannah Lynn, and I'm the host of a political commentary podcast called The Savvy Truth. If you love God, love your family, and you love this country, you can tune in our Right America Media on Facebook or at ramtv.live. This podcast airs 7 Eastern and 6 Central.
It is necessary to purge the establishment.
What she's suggesting that churches do, a focus on...
That's not necessarily a good thing to start with.
But stating wasn't around when we needed the greatest generation of the 30s or 40s.
It happened before the election because there are too many Republicans that are afraid that their wrongdoings are going to...
It's unacceptable, and I'm not going to sit here, stay silent, and not call it out. I'm calling out the lies.
With rules for Thanksgiving. Who the hell is he to tell us what we're supposed to do?
Do they think that we are so stupid that we will not notice and find out?